Hey everybody, guess who's back on the show? Holy shit, it's back at Frank Conniff is here, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. From Mystery Science Theater 3000, now from the Mads and from the John Fugelsang show. He's got a book out. I read this one already. There's another book he's got out. This guy's fucking writing. It's called Cats v. Conniff, which is hilarious. It's already funny. That's a funny title already. Cats v. Conniff. Get it. Where can they get it, Frank?
They can get it on Amazon.com.
All right, Amazon.
And also, if you come to see me at a show, I am shamelessly whoring myself with merchandise. Every show that I do.
It's the way to go, baby. Now, you're doing a live touring show. Tell people about the live touring show.
Trace Bellew, who was on Mystery Science Theater with me, we were the Mad Scientists. So now the Mads are back. That's the name of our show. And we're doing live movie riffs of not very good movies. And we're performing at, I would say, clubs and colleges all over the country, but that's not true. We're actually performing at movie theaters all over the country. The Alamo Draft House, they have a whole chain of theaters. We're doing those. We're doing a lot of other independent. We just did the Riverview.
In San Antonio?
No, in Minneapolis, which is a great movie theater. So, and we're working like crazy. We're going out like just about every weekend. Next week in Nashville, we'll be doing the big Riff Tracks live show in Nashville, which even if you're not in Nashville, it's simulcast on movie theater screens all over the country.
What?
You can check that out. Yeah, fathomevents.com. You can
Get
find
the
that.
F out of here.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That's unbelievable. That's a big deal. How did you set that up?
Well, I had nothing to do with it. That's all Riff Tracks, which is the other guys from Mystery Science Theater.
Oh, okay.
We're, all of us have our little splinter groups.
Yes, okay.
Now, who are on the show. Joel Hodgson has a splinter group now called Mystery Science Theater 3000. So we're all doing different things, but with us and Riff Tracks, we do stuff with them when they invite us, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay, yeah. So no, I haven't seen the new version of the Mystery Science.
I have not either. I've heard it's good, so I haven't watched it.
Yeah, you don't want to see it if it's good, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I even know all the people on it, and I still haven't seen it. I don't know. There's a problem with me, probably.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot. There's a lot to watch out there.
There's a lot of stuff happening. I don't have enough time to watch my own videos, Frank.
Right.
I'll tell you that. So tell me about Cats v. Conniff.
Well, Jimmy, you cover a lot of current events, so you were probably too busy. You probably missed this story in the news. It was a while ago when my cat sued me for defamation of character, and it was a landmark case. And because I was featuring them on my social media, and they were the biggest stars on my social media, so Millie and Barney, my cats, they thought I was exploiting them. So and they have
a case, Frank. I'll be honest. I've seen your Twitter feed.
Yes. They didn't like the kind of snarky, hurtful things I was saying about them.
Yes.
So they sued me, and this is like a chronicle of that historic, groundbreaking, precedent-setting legal case.
Chris Christie one time he ate at a he ate at a Mexican restaurant, got sick. He sued him for defecation of character. It's a little different.
And he's a large man, Chris Christie.
Don't you wish Chris Christie would have come back in the light?
Oh, my God. You know that of all the candidates running, Chris Christie was the man I was rooting for. Although, we don't pay that much attention to the fact that Donald Trump is kind of a big fat fuck himself.
He's not skinny.
No, he's kind of a large man, too.
And you know how you can tell? Because his ties, you go, how long is that tie?
Right.
Because it has to now go over his stomach. That's why it's so long.
That's why it's so long.
But I'm sorry, back to Cats v. I don't know how we got off on that.
Well, speaking of lawsuits, I don't know if it was a lawsuit, but the Chris Christie's family suing the TV show The Leftovers because they think it's implausible. Something they never heard of.
And it's just implausible.
Yes.
Well, you told me, Frank, I think it was you who told me that for Christmas that Chris Christie got Hickory Farms.
I did not hear that.
I thought
heard that from another source.
Oh, okay.
But
it was not a thing.
totally believe that.
But the entire farm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get back to Katz v. Conniff. So they were upset and they sued you. And this is a real book. This is over 100 pages long.
Yeah,
So it's not.
It's not just some silly thing. Actually, that's exactly what it is. But it covers all the details of the case that they had against me. And I won't tell you how it turns out, but
Oh, please don't.
yeah.
Let me ask, are the cats still with you?
They are still with me, yes. We're still living in the same apartment.
What's new, pussycat? Whoa, whoa, whoa. I did see Tom Jones live.
Did you?
I've told the story at the live shows, but the guy could still belt it out. And whoever I was with go, look, he has abs. And he looked, and I'm like, he doesn't have abs. That's a prosthetic underneath his T-shirt. He's 70-something years old.
Wow.
He doesn't have abs.
That's amazing.
But it looked good. It still looked, hey, I'm all for it. I'll get plugs, cap my teeth. I don't have a problem. I think whatever you do to look better is fine, you know? So what else? So Frank, tell us more. What else should we talk about? We talked about, now this book is still available.
My first book was called 25 Mystery Science Theater Films That Changed My Life in No Way Whatsoever. And it's just a bunch of
Now, I
silly-
actually read this book, and it is funny. It's funny right away.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of, as you know, hanging around with me. And I used to do them on your show all the time. I used to make obscure references that nobody understood. This book is packed with those.
As a further warning, it must be stated that dropping many of the references in this book into normal everyday conversation could leave you socially ostracized and without friends.
Yes. I want to warn people before they get in what they're in for.
Already funny. Already funny. But the fact that you are even considering reading this book means the train has probably already left the station, and in all likelihood, the train was featured in Good and Plenty's Choo Choo Charlie commercial from the 60s that nobody's thought about in years. So that's one of those references.
Yes, exactly.
I remember the Choo Choo Charlie.
Choo Choo Charlie.
Sure. If after this warning you still intend to continue reading, the only thing left to say is, may God have mercy on your soul. This is
And
in the
by
book.
the way, if Chris Christie had become president, he was going to make Choo Choo Charlie Secretary of Transportation.
And then you end it, but this is just the FBI warning at the beginning of the book. There's an FBI warning, which is hilarious. And he says, quote, when he says, may God have mercy on your soul, parentheses, God is a reference to a character in a book written thousands of years ago. See what we mean about how out of date some of this shit is. So that's nice. I did read this book. It was funny right away, so it's hard to not read it, right? And it's short book, too. It's not too long. It's like, this is also 103 pages.
Yeah, I write short books because they're easier to sell as merch.
Wow.
Those are my high literary aspirations.
Oh, look, you have, I never looked at that club, but you'll have all the names of the movies on the videotape.
Right.
Ah, nice. So check out 25 Mystery Science Theater, 3,000 Films That Changed My Life in No Way Whatsoever. That's this book. And then he's got another book, Katz v. Conniff. And Frank is one of the all-time funniest comedy writers around. And so we were always thrilled and lucky to have Frank be a part of the show when he was in Los Angeles.
So one thing I regret about moving away from Los Angeles is not being part of the show anymore.
It was left a big hole in the show, Frank. Left the people
Chris Christie-sized hole, I heard.
People still complain that the show is not as funny as it was since you left, and it's not. So I have to I'm pretty funny just on my own.
You are. People always ask me, are you and Jimmy Dore, are you still friends? I know you have political differences. And I say, Jimmy is too funny to not be my friend, and I'm too funny to not be Jimmy's friend.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Frank still writes for the show. That's the beauty. He still writes for the show, hilarious jokes all the time. Yes, and we can have political I had political differences with everyone at the Young Turks.
I know. I'm sure.
I mean, it's okay to have political differences, right?
Absolutely.
I think we're both not racists.
No.
Right? I think we're both for free speech.
Right.
I think we're both for Medicare. Right? I think we're both lefties, is what I'm trying to say, right? Okay.
I heard Bill Maher drop the N-word.
He did.
Well, since it's Bill Maher, I assumed it's narcissist.
Nice. Different N-word. He called himself a house N-word.
Yes, he did.
And I saw it, and I just like.
I thought it was pretty mild, personally.
I don't.
You know what?
You know he does. I knew he didn't mean anything by it.
It
right?
was a joke.
it's just a joke, right?
Yeah.
So, but at the moment I saw it, I was like, oh, I bet he's going to catch some flack for this joke, and he should know better than to do that joke.
Right. Or maybe he does know exactly what he's doing.
Oh, maybe he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So smart. That's smart of him then.
Yeah. Hey, he's
that probably
the one,
is smart of him.
He's the one with the HBO show, not us.
Yeah, you're right.
You know?
So Bill's, I'll give it. Yeah. Bill has certainly traversed the business of entertainment very well.
He has.
And but by the way, I'm a fan of Bill Maher's. You know, I read his book, and he never even talks about. He wrote a book maybe 25 years ago.
Oh, the one about comedians, right?
About comedy.
Yeah, it was a novel about comedians. I remember that. True story, right?
It's called True Story.
Yeah.
I love that book. I laughed out loud reading that book, and because obviously because I was a young comic at the time, so it was about being a comic. And it's about when stand-up comedy in America first started. Right. In a sense, in the 80s.
Of the boom, in other words.
Right. Yeah. So when comedy clubs started, because there weren't comedy clubs before, you have to be, if you're a comedian, you have to go to a jazz club or a coffee shop or something to do. But now they have comedy clubs. Anyway, so I saw that happen with Bill Maher. So, we can have political differences. So everybody at the Young Turks is a frickin' Hillary voter, and I'm a frickin' Bernie voter. Right. And, or I was a Jill Stein. They were also Bernie in the primary, but I was Jill Stein. And it's... You
know what? I have... maybe as a bridge builder, I have a Hillary story I can tell you that I think you will like, that involves me.
Please.
And I think you will like this story.
Please.
I've actually, ever since it happened, I was like, I can't wait to do it on the Jimmy Dore show. I've waited all this time for it. And I've talked about it before, but my brother Tony is a musician in New York. He co-writes the songs that we do for my Podhouse 90. Very talented guy. He was asked to put together a benefit at the Bitter End Club in New York for Hillary, and he got a bunch of his musician friends to do it. He one of them, whom was Mark Shaman, who's like a big deal. He wrote the music to Hairspray. He's kind of a big deal in the music world.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and then he's like. And then he's like, oh, maybe, I'll get some comedians, and I'll have my brother Frank. I'll ask him, and maybe he can get some comedians to be a part of it. So he asked me, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like in the tank for Hillary from day one. John Fugelsang always says that I wear pantsuits around the house, and but it's not because I support Hillary. It's because they feel sensual against my skin. But anyway, so I'm like, okay, yeah, of course I'll do the Hillary benefit, and then I got Judy Gold and John Fugelsang to do it as well, and then so it's all set to go, and then someone from Hillary's office talks to my brother and says, Frank, we're really happy that he's doing the show, but his Twitter feed is a little controversial for us, a little edgy. My
yours?
Twitter. Yes, and they're like, he can do the show, but we don't want to advertise that he's going to be in the show. And yes. And so
what? I mean, you are right in their wheelhouse of the people they're trying to appeal to.
I know, and I was her, like I said from day one, I was like her biggest supporter on Twitter, her biggest supporter on the Fugelsang show. Anyway, I debated you about her.
Yes.
And so I was like, screw you, I'm not going to do the show. And then Fugelsang and Judy Gold dropped out too after that, and then we never did the benefit. But it's like, but maybe that's like maybe an indication. And I don't think Hillary herself was involved in any of these decisions, but it's kind of an indication of like some of the mentality in her campaign. This guy who's a big supporter. And, we love his Twitter feed, but it's a little edgy, and we don't want necessarily for Hillary to be associated with that.
So, Frank, that's an amazing story. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
That's a great Hillary jilted lover story.
She left me at the
she left you
at the altar of her benefit.
So I was...
and then the weird thing is she let Jim Norton be in the show. I'm kidding. No.
She had Louis C.K. and Jim Norton. Nick DiPaolo swung by. She She had Kathy Griffin. So, and I don't want to even talk about that. Let's not. Right. There's nothing to say about it, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing to say about it. Okay. So, I have a story. I recently was in. We were going to interview. I don't want to say the names, but there was a progressive candidate running for a big spot in the, and we reached out to them. Hey, we'll have you on the show. This would be good. Some of the people, their supporters, said you should have this politician on, and it would be good because you're a progressive voice, and this politician's a big progressive. So I said, okay, sure, let's do it. Right. I cut to the chase. They said no, and they told my producer Ron that some of the people are afraid that Jimmy Dore is going to ask you a gotcha question. First of all, so A, fucking what? But B, I'm a progressive. You're a progressive. That's why we invited you on the frickin' show.
Right.
And if you can't take a question from a progressive news person, how are you going to handle a frickin' anybody?
I know.
So it turns out you and I have similar experience.
I know.
We were jilted by our own people.
And also, you know what? If you're a politician, like up and coming or whatever, come on the Jimmy Dore show. Take the gotcha questions, learn how to deal with it, and then when you're being interviewed by a really tough interviewer like Chuck Todd, then you'll be prepared.
Well, yeah, if you happen to be sitting next to Brian Williams while he's coming in his pants at a missile launch.
Yes, exactly. You'll know, or if he's interviewing, or if he's asking the opinions of a war profiteer about what we should be doing.
So what do you think? So, Frank, what do you think about what's happening at MSNBC now? They're bringing over Fox News people.
I know it's horrible.
So I was taught that Fox News wasn't news, and the people who did that are just propagandists, and and they're actually tearing down our culture and all that stuff. And now all of a sudden there's a new boss at NBC News, and all of a sudden he's like, no, they're all right. Everybody's okay.
Well, I don't know if you saw that article. I think it was in HuffPost about how the primetime lineup on MSNBC, considered liberal by a lot of people, not by you,
not by me,
but considered liberal by mainstream standards or whatever, that's doing really well in the ratings.
Yep.
But the head of Andrew Lack he doesn't care about that. He wants it to be more conservative anyway. And
so he's turning it into like so the difference between MSNBC and Fox News was, what I was told, is that Fox News had a real ideology, right? They really did. MSNBC didn't ever, even though they were, quote, liberal, and that was each individual host. The management didn't have an ideology. They're corporatists. Yeah. At first, it was General Electric and MSNBC, and then now it's Comcast, who fired Ed Schultz for talking about the TPP. So and they also fired Phil Donahue for being against the war when they were owned by General Electric. So it was never the same. It was these guys were trying to do news individually, but it was like a corporation figured out they can make money off the left.
Right. And so that was kind of an accident when that happened at MSNBC. It was really because of Keith Olbermann having great ratings. But before Keith Olbermann was what you were talking about, the Phil Donahue thing, and they actually had Michael Savage was one of their on-air personalities there until he told someone to die of AIDS. And now he'd get promoted for that. But corporate media, I think, I argue with John Fugelsang about this sometimes because, he says it's just all ratings. They just want ratings. And I think, yes, they want ratings, but I think that there's a tendency to be conservative regardless of ratings. There's a tendency to support the status quo, and they're all of them are living they're literally millionaires, all of them living comfortable, protected lives. I happened to see a thing on C-SPAN that was Jake Tapper, Katie Tur, and Brian Seltzer. It was like a panel. And Jorge Ramos, who was the only one out of all of them who was saying, we have to be the opposition of Trump. We have to be the resistance. And the whole message that Jake Tapper was putting forth was, hey, let's all calm down here. Everybody's freaking out about Trump, but things are not that bad. Well, they're not that bad for you. You make like $5 million a year, So I think there's just a corporate mentality that leans conservative, and I think that even if they put the Jimmy Dore show on 8 o'clock on MSNBC and it got killer ratings, they would be uncomfortable with that.
They would,
and they would replace you with Nicole Wallace.
They well, they would, and you know, I mean, Chomsky has taught us that what they're there to do is manufacture consent, and what they really are doing is forwarding the agenda of the plutocrats, right, and the oligarchy. So now there's that study, it was the Princeton study, which proved that there's no correlation between legislation and the general public.
Of course.
The bottom 90% of earners have no correlation between what they want and don't want and legislation.
Yeah.
But there is an exact correlation with the upper 10% of earners. So if 20% of the top 10% want something, 20% of the time it gets passed.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. Like, whereas you and I wanted public option when they were passing Obamacare, and some people said 80,000 people, 80% of the people wanted that, and we didn't get it. Why?
Right.
Because the upper 10% didn't want it.
Yeah.
So I think you're more right than in this situation, because it's not just about ratings. You're right. It's about manufacturing consent.
Yes.
It's about getting ratings in a certain way.
The status quo. And
Maintaining
their turf.
If it was about ratings, they would put Julian Assange on. They would They would have him on.
Right.
Right. Because hate him or like him, he would get ratings.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not about ratings. Is why I'm saying that to back up your point. So I just don't get how. To me, it's funny to watch Rachel Maddow have to sit there and giggle with Brian Williams.
Yeah.
Like, that's his punishment. He has to sit there and try to make Rachel Maddow laugh. That was his purgatory.
Right.
I don't understand. By the way, Rachel Maddow, you know, because I say it a million times, she makes $30,000 a day. That's a lot of money, right?
That's a lot of money.
And I'm not saying she's not a nice person.
She is a nice person, and I think that she knows how to get along with people, and so she's figured out how to live within a world that she's probably in her heart of hearts is more progressive than. But I think the thing that bugs me about her, as much as I like her, is she's too much of a loyal soldier of that mentality. Whereas, like, Keith Olbermann, if he had his show during the campaign last year, I think he would have put his foot down and saying, I'm not going to run Donald Trump's speeches uninterrupted. I'm not going to do that.
I guarantee you Keith Olbermann would have did that.
You can't do that on my show. But on MSNBC, which should have been the voice against all of this, they were like, oh, yeah, we're liberal, we're anti-Trump, but we'll show his speeches in their entireties, you know.
And they did the thing where they showed the empty podium, too.
Yes.
They did
and they did the people who were able to interview him, like Morning Joe, did the phoners, which no candidate had ever done before. So the mainstream media is the same way that they're complicit in the Iraq war, they are very complicit in the Trump presidency, and continue to be, and continue to do everything they can to normalize him every day.
We agree.
Exactly.
This is unbelievable.
Yes.
This is great. Frank and I are on the same page. The corporate media is shit once again.
Right.
He reminds people, because I was there and he was there, a lot of people weren't, that the mainstream news media beat the drum for war.
Yes.
Every newspaper, especially the Washington Post and the New York Times.
New York Times
printed, what did the New York Times do, Frank?
Well, the New York Times printed Judith Miller, and also, I think,
above the fold, front page.
And I think her co-writer on that, on her byline, I might be getting the name wrong, David Sanger, maybe. He's still at the New York Times, the guy who co-wrote Judith Miller's articles. And the New York Times, and it was all, you watch Dick Cheney on Meet the Press with Tim Russert saying, well, you know,
the New York Times,
I know this sounds crazy, but look at the front page of the New York Times. And it was all coordinated, you know, to present these total lies that took us into war, and they could not have done it. Hate the Bush administration as much as you want. They're worthy of all your hate, but they had partners. They couldn't have done it without the media.
And people need to remember that, right? People need to remember that. And so, you know, the sad thing is that people turn towards, like, the Washington Post and the New York Times to be the buffer against Trump, right? They that's what they're looking for.
The New York Times, which by the way ran a headline, FBI association. FBI sees no Russian Trump connection, like days before the election.
The New York Times did.
Yes.
So I think people, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the corporate media, they're the establishment media.
And
right?
good stuff seeps through those things.
Sure, there's good people.
Good investigative reporting. Although there was a lot of good investigative reporting about Trump during the lead up to nobody gave a shit. It had no impact on anything.
So right now we're in the middle of a minor schmierski from the Washington Post. Our mustachioed friend Dave Weigel put us in the middle of a story about fake news where he used DNC talking points to try to debunk a fake news story, which is fucking hilarious to me. And he made a mistake because he's elevated our show now. If he was trying to diminish us, he's helped us because I caught him lying about the conflict of interest between his paper and the CIA. So Jeff Bezos has a $600 million deal with the CIA. And if any other country's leading newspaper had that deal with their secret police or whatever, they would be mocking them.
I didn't know the CIA, do they have an agent or something? Well, they have CIA agents, but they make deals with... They have a development deal with Amazon.
With Amazon? Yeah. Isn't that funny? So, by the way, and think about how insidious this is, right? So this isn't a little thing, and for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons is, did you know that 51% of the households in America have Amazon Prime? Do you know 49% of the households...
I have it.
I do too. You know that 49% of the households have a landline? There are more households with Amazon Prime than a landline in the United States. So just think about that. Plus, they have Alexa. So now,
what is that?
Alexa is the thing where Amazon has where you say what you want and it tells you everything. It's like your little Siri, but it sits on your counter.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
Alexa. So I saw this whole presentation about how Amazon is using Alexa in an unbelievably algorithmic way to know everything about you. We hold it as data, and then we switch your we know your preferences, but they switch them. It's a long, and it's the way that they're getting rid of brands. It's an idea that Amazon has to get rid of branding. It's crazy, right? But anyway, so that's a long story. But they have all this information, and now they're in bed with the CIA to the tune of $600 million, which, Frank, is about 3 times what the paper's worth.
And what are they doing with the CIA?
So they're literally setting up a secure cloud service so they can store information. Really, you mean information about what? WikiLeaks? Information about Syria? Information about fucking what? And when they report on it, Frank, they're supposed to put an editor's note that there's a conflict of interest, the owner of this paper, and they don't. And when they write about Uber, they're supposed to say, editor's note, our owner has $1 billion in stock about Uber. They don't fucking tell you that.
Right.
They don't tell you, but so there's lots of, and that's not me saying that, that's Norman Solomon saying that, right?
I have an opinion about the Uber thing. It'll be here in 3 minutes.
So... And then I caught Dave Weigel. Literally, a guy confronted him on Twitter about that. It's like, you're the guy, we're supposed to believe you, because he's writing those stories about fake news. And he goes, we're supposed to believe you when your paper's in bed with the CIA. And he had a link to this thing called hangthebankers.com. That's where and Dave Weigel, instead of admitting it, like a frickin' ethical newsman, saying, yes, a lot of people have said that's a conflict of interest. A lot of people disagree that we should put an editor's note. Our paper's position is we don't. He didn't do that. What he did was he said, it's going to be hard to debunk hangthebankers.com, which is 2 things. It's gaslighting, which is a form of lying. So he's lying to that guy, not admitting it, and shows no character, and he's fucking smearing the source, even though the source was correct. So and by the way, he's not just a regular person. He's like the lead political fucking reporter for the Washington Post, a paper of note, and he's sitting there lying publicly and gaslighting the public and smearing a source that's actually accurate about a conflict of interest with his paper. That is fucking huge.
Right.
And we caught him, and we rattled him. He started tweeting out videos of me interviewing Jill Stein, just like that. And his own followers are like, what's the big deal? You guys interviewed her too. Why can't a reporter? So he's just and it's funny. It's funny that when the establishment came at me, and Dave Weigel's made mistakes like this in the past. He had to leave the Washington Post the first time because he got caught sending bullshit about the right wing in an email to 400 reporters. You know that story, right?
I forgot that was him.
That was him. That was Dave Weigel, and he had to leave because he was hired by the Washington Post, and he didn't come up through the ranks of being a regular reporter, right? He's just a jagoff like me, right? I'm a fucking jagoff sitting here talking. So is Dave Weigel. He wasn't a reporter. He didn't learn from anybody. He was a blogger that the Washington Post hired to go cover the right wing and the Tea Party, and he got caught in an email that goes out to 400 journalists in the bubble saying all this hateful shit about the right wing. It's like dumb fuck, and he had to quit. He had to resign, and he said he was and so he's doing it again. He's not that bright, Dave Weigel. It's not, and that. I'm dumb too, but I don't make fucking mistakes like that. And I'm certainly not going to punch down, which is what I'm not going to lend somebody my microphone, which is what he did to our show. And it's a big gift. I should send him some fucking flowers, actually. But anyway, so I don't know if you saw that. They ran a series of fake news. Oh, how to debunk fake news. The fucking Washington Post. And you know they're running fake news almost every fucking day. He put DNC talking points in that story. I'm going to shut up about it.
Although I will say Dave Weigel, and this is absolutely true, has a book about
prog rock.
That I am looking forward to reading. Because I love that shit.
I know. I know. All right, Frank. Well, I want to remind everybody how much we miss Frank at the show.
It's great to be back.
The show was funnier when Frank was here, and I'll admit that freely. I miss you. I miss your humor.
You guys.
I really do, Frank, and I'm glad things worked out for you when you went to New York. So now people think that I kicked you off the show or we got in a fight. No, he got an opportunity to go be a big part of another show that was on a network, John Fugel's Gang Show, which is on the Sirius XM.
Well, I left actually for his current TV show.
That was right. That's right.
I was like, screw you, Jimmy Dore. I'm doing it's current TV. You're not going to see current TV go away ever. This is going to be, I'm established now. I'm burning every bridge because it doesn't matter. And so
I did not know that's why you left. I thought it was for the Sirius XM.
The Sirius XM thing came after that because I did after the current show. I did W. Kamau Bell's show on FX, and once again I was like, everybody. The hell with all of you. I'm on a late night. Those jobs last forever. This is like a 20-year gig now. All my financial worries are over. So, and then now I'm on Sirius XM, which pays less than podcasts. But anyway.
Yes, but you are now touring.
Yes, touring with Traceable You, the Mads are back and doing really well, selling out everywhere.
And that's so much fun, right, Frank? When you sell out, you show up, you know there's going to be, you get off the plane, the show's already sold out.
I've never, in my whole career, I've never experienced that before, where you just go to a show. And I mean, I experienced it with Cinematic Titanic, and now I'm experiencing it with Trace and myself. It's just an audience that they're there to see you, and they have fond memories of the work we did on Mystery Science Theater, and it's a great experience.
Yeah, I can tell you, we have parallel situations. We're at the same stage. At this time in my career, all of a sudden we start selling tickets. That's great. You're selling tickets. Yeah. I got to tell you, there is no greater feeling in the world than selling tickets and showing up to a room full of people who are waiting to see you.
It's great, yeah.
All right, so check out Frank Conniff at frankconniff.com. FrankConniff.com. You can get all the dates, live dates, right?
FrankConniff.com and themadsarback.com and the Mads Are Back Facebook page.
Okay.
And you can go to my Twitter and my Facebook.
Frank's a great tweeter, so check out Frank's Twitter feed. We're going to put links down below this video. Check out his book, The Cats vs. Conniff. Hilarious. I didn't read it yet, but I have read this book, and this book is fucking hilarious. It's called 25 Mystery Science Theater 3000 Films That Changed My Life in No Way Whatsoever. Also available. So, Frank, thanks very much for coming back. I hope it's not another 3 years before we see you.
No, I hope I come back soon.
All right, buddy. The next live Jimmy Dore show is June 19th in Burbank, California, and July 15th in San Francisco at the Great Star Theater. For all links for all tickets to those shows and our full schedule right there, there's a link to jimmydorecomedy.com. We'll see you at those live shows.